All right, today we're going to talk about something really fascinating, a psychological profile that might just click for a lot of you, the deep processor mindset. So let me ask you something. Have you ever found yourself at a party just watching people glide from one light, breezy conversation to the next, and you just feel completely drained? Or what about this? You're in a typical office, you look around, and you just can't figure out how everyone else seems so fine with a routine that to you feels like a cage. Yeah, if any of that is ringing a bell, then you're in exactly the right place.
For years, maybe you've heard these labels thrown at you, that you're socially anxious, or you lack discipline, or you're just a classic overthinker. But what if all those labels are completely missing the point? What if it's not a flaw at all, but just the way your mind is built?
This is what we call the deep processor mindset. And here's the most important part. This is not a disorder. It's a pretty rare psychological profile that hardwires you to just operate differently. It makes you a natural outlier in a world that, let's be honest, is often built for the shallow and the fast. So let's break down what that actually looks like.
All right, first sign, and this is a big one for a lot of people. It's a deep, profound dislike for superficial conversation.
Let's really dig into this idea of static. For a deep processor, small talk isn't just boring. It literally feels like noise that's blocking a real signal. See, your brain isn't just looking for a simple update on someone's day. It wants to know the why behind what they do, the deeper patterns, the real motivations. So yeah, the easy label, the myth, is that you're just antisocial, right? Or you're being difficult. But the reality, it's that your brain is just optimized for something deeper. It's constantly scanning for meaningful data, and when it can't find it, well, it starts to check out. This isn't a social failure, it's a cognitive preference. Okay, let's move on to the second sign, and this is where it gets really interesting. We're gonna take something that's almost always seen as a negative, overthinking, and flip it on its head. Seriously, if you've been told your whole life to just stop overthinking, you have to hear this. For a deep processor, what looks like worrying from the outside is actually a high-speed cognitive tool. Your brain isn't just stuck in some negative loop, it's running thousands of simulations. You don't just see a problem in front of you, you see the 10 steps that created it and the 50 different ways it might unfold. It's your way of navigating a super complex reality. And, this kind of thing doesn't just come from nowhere. It often has really deep roots. It's super common in people who had to be hyper-independent growing up, folks who basically had to raise themselves. In that kind of environment, developing this intense processing power wasn't a choice, it was a survival mechanism. All right, our third sign. This one digs into why crowded places can feel, well, just completely overwhelming, and it's probably not for the reason you think. The go-to label for feeling uncomfortable in a crowd is social anxiety. But for a deep processor, it's often something else entirely. Sensory saturation. Think about it. You're not necessarily scared of the people. Your brain is just getting slammed with data. It's trying to process all the background conversations, the lights, the music, the tiny little micro expressions on every single face. It's just too much input. And this brings up such a cool paradox. You might seem like the quietest person in the room, but your mind is actually the busiest. You are gathering way more data than the person who's doing all the talking. This is a skill. You see it a lot in people who were maybe the black sheep of the family. They had to learn how to read a room with near-perfect accuracy just to stay safe.
Okay, and that brings us to our final sign. This one is all about a deep, powerful need for independence.
If this is you, you probably have almost zero patience for what feels like pointless authority. That traditional 9-to-5 grind can feel absolutely suffocating. And let's be clear, this isn't about being lazy or undisciplined, not at all. It's because your mind is wired for a totally different kind of work. And this leads to what we call the polymath advantage. Think about it. Do you have a graveyard of old hobbies or projects you just dropped? That's not a sign of failure. It's actually a sign you mastered the core stuff really fast, and your brain was already hungry for the next challenge. You are perfectly built for a future where being an M-shaped person, a specialist in lots of things, is way more valuable than just being a master of one. Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. If you've spent your whole life feeling kind of out of sync, it is absolutely time for a new perspective. You are not broken. You're just an outlier. You weren't designed to go with the flow and follow the crowd. You're built to see the things that other people miss, to think for yourself, and to challenge the way things are. So that need you have for solitude,
That's not a weakness. It's how you recharge, how you process all that data you're constantly taking in. And your so-called weirdness is the very engine of your unique perspective. It is time to stop apologizing for how you're wired. And that really brings us to the final big thought here. Look, the world doesn't need more people who can blend in. It desperately needs more people who can see deeply. So, I'll leave you with this question. What could you actually achieve if you stopped trying to squeeze into a box you are never meant for, and instead started using your depth as your greatest